A lot of attention is being given to this year's elections, presidential elections specifically. But there are talks about potential changing to the way we vote. Joining me to discuss this is Lulu Friesdat of Smart Legislation. I will also be speaking with Dr. Zulema Blair, who will help us remember a phenomenal leader, Dr. John Flateau. But first, Lulu Friesdat, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
It's a pleasure to be here.
The presidential election this year, how many people do you anticipate coming out to vote?
I think it's always hard to say. You can look at the one caucus that we have had so far as of the time that we're taping this special, and that was Iowa. They had about 15% of the registered Republican voters participate in that caucus, which was actually the lowest turnout in a decade there. Now, they did have a blizzard, so, there's always different things that affect elections. It's not just who's on the ballot. There's a whole world of environmental reasons. But I think we're also looking at the likelihood that you have two relatively unfavorable candidates at the top of the ticket on each party. Both Donald Trump and Joe Biden have had favorability ratings below 50% for quite a while. So I think it's hard to say, but we could see an election where it's a little bit hard to motivate people to get out.
Well, let's talk about the voting system. We've got a pretty reliable voting system in place, but there's talk about potential changes to this process. Explain that.
So now we're talking specifically about New York State. And New York State is at the point where we will be changing much of the voting equipment that we have used for the past 10 years. And that's just because our voting systems are aging out of use. We started using them over 10 years ago, and they have a lifespan of about 10 years. So many of the counties around the state are in the process of either looking for or changing their voting equipment. Now, something has happened that many experts and advocates are extremely concerned about, which is that the New York State Board of Elections has approved a new type of voting system. It's an all computerized system, and experts say that these systems are more expensive, less secure, can contribute to very long lines to vote, and make it almost impossible for voters to verify who they voted for. So there is a great deal of concern right now to try to protect the system that we have had for the last 10 years, where voters can vote with a pen and paper if they choose to, or with a ballot marking device, with a computer, whatever is more comfortable for them. That's the system we've had for the last 10 years. And most experts and most good government groups say that's the type of system we need to stick with. And we are trying to fight this new all computerized system.
Experts say we need to stay with the system we are accustomed to. What do you say?
Well, I founded an organization called Smart Elections, and I also run our partner organization, Smart Legislation. And both of these organizations really work hand in glove with experts. And that's because there has been so much kind of controversy and confusion and misinformation about election technology. It is extremely important for us to listen to people who studied it extensively. And we have a very renowned and reliable team of election security and election experts, people who are computer science experts, people who are election officials and former election officials, and they advise us based on their experience and their expertise, and we listen to them. And so I agree with the experts that the system that has been approved, called the Express Vote XL, is of grave, grave concern to New Yorkers. It poses an extreme risk that our elections could become more chaotic, less reliable, and that we could have lines as long as they have in some states. In states like Georgia, where they use this type of voting equipment, they have had lines as long as 10 hours to vote. And that is not what we want to see happen to our elections here.
Let's explain some more for our viewers the system that you are saying would be a better system.
Right. The system that we have here in New York now is something that most people, if they voted are familiar with, you go to the polls, and most people usually use a pen and paper to vote here. You take a pen, you get a paper ballot, and you fill in little dots that are sort of like an SAT test. And then you take that paper ballot over to a machine known as a scanner, and it looks kind of like your printer, and you put your paper ballot in, and the machine, you can see the number go up, that it says your ballot has been scanned and your vote has been cast. And that type of system is really considered a very reliable system for two reasons. One, because the scanners, as long as they are working properly and the software is working correctly, they are accurate. And also, if there's any problem with them, you have that paper ballot that you can turn to, and you can count it by hand if need be, and you can get an accurate count. And we do audits in New York. I don't believe that they're as good as they should be. Our group also works to try to improve those audits, but that's a different story. We're talking about right now, what we have is a system that we can audit that paper ballot, and we do audit them. The system that the State Board of Elections has approved now, and just to be very clear, it's just one of the new systems. There are other new systems that have been approved that are really good systems that we think would be great to transition to. They would be basically carrying on the same process that we have now. Just this one system we're worried about, the Express Vote XL. And there are reasons why it's really not considered a good voting machine by experts. One is that it counts the vote by encoding that vote in a barcode. And that is considered very risky because the barcode can be programmed either intentionally or by accident to vote for a different candidate, and then the candidate that you selected. So I'll give you an example of this, Sam. So say you're on the ballot and I'm trying to vote for you, because I actually would be very proud to vote for you. I think you'd be terrific in public office if you decide to run. So I'm there and I'm casting my ballot for you. But in the new system called the Express Vote XL that we don't like, this computerized system, I don't actually get to fill out a bubble next to your name. I have to select it on a touch screen system. So I'm going to select Sam Taitt, and then the computer, hopefully, is going to select that behind the scenes within its software. It's going to select Sam Taitt, and it's going to print up this little thing on the side of the voting machine that looks like a receipt, and I can't really see it that well. It's behind plastic. And then whatever it shows me is not what gets counted. There is a barcode that the machine prints, and the barcode is what gets counted. And they actually just had an election in Pennsylvania where they used these machines, and the barcode was counting the vote for a different candidate than what was shown on that receipt. The receipt would say the vote was for one particular judge, but the barcode was counting for a different judge. So we know that these machines can be either programmed or accidentally count incorrectly. And we do not want that. We want for the voter to be able to verify who they voted for. When you fill out that piece of paper, you can see who you voted for right there on the piece of paper. And that is what is being counted, hopefully, by the scanner, and we can check that with an audit. So that's just one of the reasons that we don't like these machines called the Express Vote XL. And all of the alternate systems that are from other companies like Hart or Clear Ballot, those systems allow you to fill out a ballot with a piece of paper, and they also have another system for voters with disabilities who have any problems filling out a ballot with a piece of paper. Both systems would be available. So we're trying to pass legislation that would stick with that system, the pen and paper plus an option for voters with disabilities. That's the system we want.
Are voters and potential voters aware of this discontent with these new systems, and are they aware that there's a preference for the paper type of voting? How do we?
Yeah, there is actually a lot of awareness about this issue, and it is getting more and more attention we've actually been fighting these voting machines for the last 4 years. And in the last 3 legislative sessions, the New York Senate has passed the legislation that would ban them. Unfortunately, the New York Assembly has influences there that we do not think are completely above board. There are some indications of corruption there in the New York Assembly. There's a lobbyist for the voting machine vendor that has an outsized influence there. And we're very concerned that the New York Assembly has not passed the legislation due to this pressure from the lobbyist, which the lobbyist was not even registered as a lobbyist. And so it was actually illegal what he was doing. So there has been the indication of corruption in the New York Assembly. But the groups that are supporting the legislation and that are fighting these voting machines include 5 different civil rights groups, including the Center for Law and Social Justice, the Center for Common Ground, the Black Institute, Common Power, Justice Coalition USA, as well as good government groups across the political spectrum, from Common Cause, which is a more progressive group, although they're officially nonpartisan, but Common Cause, Let New York Vote, are supporting this legislation, as well as New York Citizens Audit, which is a more conservative group. It is very rare that you see so many groups across the political spectrum from very different perspectives, all saying, these voting machines are bad. This legislation is good. We need to stop these voting machines. There is a great deal of consensus on it. And what we really need is pressure now on the legislature to really roll over that lobbying influence and really try to get the legislators to do the right thing.
What is your organization doing to put pressure on these legislators to do the right thing?
We have done a great deal, actually. And one of the things that we did last session that was tremendously effective, we created an ad, a public service announcement that was voiced by Andre Braugher, the late great actor. And he was very committed to this legislation. And he, along with Laurie Daniel Favors, who is the executive director of the Center of Law and Social Justice, voiced this ad. You can hear it if you go to our website at smartlegislation.org. And within 48 hours of our producing this ad and putting it up on the internet, it had over 400,000 views, so almost 500,000 views. And within 48 hours, the New York State Senate did pass the legislation. So our efforts have been very effective, and we just need to really keep the pressure on. We are actually exploring naming the bill now in honor of Andre Braugher. He was a wonderful actor, deeply loved and respected. And the bill would then be hopefully called the Andre Braugher Voting Integrity and Verification Act of New York.
So we expect that this legislation will be passed before the elections this year.
We hope that the legislation will be passed before June, which is when the legislative session ends. And it's really critically important now, because the machines did get approved by the New York State Board of Elections. We're really down to the wire. Any county could buy these voting machines at any point right now. They're legally available. No county has purchased them yet, thankfully. And that is one of the other things that we are doing at Smart Legislation. We are reaching out to counties and county election officials across the state and letting them know how problematic these voting machines are, that they have actually miscounted votes in 3 separate elections, and how expensive they are, how they contribute to long lines, how they make it impossible, experts say, for voters to verify their votes, and really discouraging election officials from purchasing these machines and letting them know they have much better, much more affordable options available. So if you want to know more about our work, you can go to smartlegislation.org. There you can watch the ad there that Andre Braugher made. You can read our press release. You can make a donation to help our work, which we would be very grateful for. And you can join the fight to really help protect New York elections.
Lulu Friesdat. And again, the name of your organization so that everyone will know.
It is Smart Legislation, and you can go to smartlegislation.org and connect with us there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you too for being our guests on Brooklyn 45 and for providing this information so that when we all go to vote, not for Sam Taitt, okay?
Vote for Sam Taitt, why not? A wonderful, wonderful man.
Yes, thank you very much. I want to thank you for being on our program, and we look forward to hearing more about where we are going with voting this year. Thank you again for being on Brooklyn 45.
Thank you.
Brooklyn and New York have lost a giant, Dr. John Flateau. Joining me to discuss this is Dr. Zulema Blair, who is very knowledgeable about Dr. Flateau's work and his impact. Dr. Blair, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thank you, Sam, for having me.
Someone described Dr. Flateau as a mentor, a selfless professor, and an extraordinary strategist. How do you describe him?
Yes, I would describe him similarly. I think he was an excellent mentor, and he definitely was a brilliant strategist, and he was a selfless professor. I believe that he enjoyed bringing new individuals into politics, especially former students, new mentees. He enjoyed having, if you will, a new class of individuals join him in whatever he was doing. In terms of the mentor, he certainly was a mentor to me. He introduced me to a lot of Central Brooklyn politics, a lot of New York City politics, and basically have done that for many students, including my son. So he was his mentor as well.
It's said that he worked tirelessly to obliterate America's original sin of racism. I know you've worked with him. How do you respond to that?
Uh, Definitely, where, for example, prisons, if you will, are a microcosm of what's going on every day in society. Dr. Flateau researched brilliantly the prison industrial complex and wrote a book about it. And it was published through our own think tank, the Du Bois Bunce Center for Public Policy, for which Dr. Flateau was an executive director of. If you look at all the things that has inhibited us as a people from you know, Reconstruction onwards, voting rights. There was Dr. Flateau at the center of it, and he was known all over the country for it. In terms of how we're counted as a people in terms of demographics and the census, there was Dr. Flateau again. So he understood the power of numbers. He understood where these these racist issues were placed and how they were placed, and he did his best to try to correct it as much as he could through a number of things, through advocacy, through policy, but mostly through research and bringing that to the fray.
Let's get to Medgar Evers. He directed two of Medgar Evers' cutting edge think tanks. Talk about those programs that he directed at Medgar Evers.
Yeah, one I previously mentioned, the Du Bois Bunce Center for Public Policy, which that's how I first came to Medgar Evers College. Dr. Flateau hired me as a deputy director under him for research and a research assistant. And it was founded in 1993 by Dr. Edison O. Jackson, a former president, and Dr. Flateau in 1994 became his first director. And as he was, continuing his career through Medgar and served in different capacity, he continued to pour his heart into the Du Bois Bunce Center. A lot of funding and research went into that. And basically, we want to make sure that the work lives on to make it a public policy think tank in the way that it should be recognized.
He was very close to the late Alvan.
Yes, he was.
Talk about that relationship between Dr. Flateau and Alvan.
Oh, well, when Alvan died, one of the things that came to be known with that was that there was this, it was known for a while, that there was this big three, if you will. And Dr. Flateau was one of them. He was a strategist, Esmeralda Simmons was the lawyer, and Paul Wooten was also another lawyer with them. But Dr. Flateau was right there, thinking of the numbers, thinking of how city council seats would be drawn, thinking of how assembly seats would be drawn, and really coming up with election strategies on how to win elections and bring more Black leaders, elected leaders, into the New York City Council and the New York State Legislature and Congress. that was another thing he was brilliant at, right? Real political strategist in terms of getting Black people elected.
Well, one Black person that he was a strategist for, he was that person's chief of staff. I can see you getting ready to shake your head. That person, of course, was Mayor David Dinkins, and he was not only chief of staff, but he was campaign coordinator. Talk to us about that.
Well, yes, he was the first, as we like to know, the first Black chief of staff for New York City. And as one of the lone people coming out of Brooklyn, if you will, to Mayor Dinkins' campaign and his election and his office and serving in that administration. He served, I believe, from 1991 to 1993, and he served with a lot of integrity and a lot of if you will, strategic mindsets on how to move different parts of the city along. From there, he went on to secure other important positions based on that, such as coming to Medgar Evers College, and before that, as a chief officer at Economic Development Corporation. But in terms of Dinkins, what Dr. Flateau was able to do was mobilize the Black vote in a way that had not been harnessed and done before, and memorialize a lot of different policies under Dinkins as well.
Getting Black people to vote, getting people across Brooklyn to vote. Mm-hmm. He was the commissioner on the New York State Independent Redistricting Commission. He did a lot of work. Did you work with him on that as well?
Well, I was mostly we did a lot of work together. And I actually, Dr. Flateau commissioned one of his last big research acts, if you will, was when he commissioned a study from the New York City Redistricting Commission, where he served as executive director this last go round. And one of the things that we came to know, which a lot of newspapers picked up, the New York Times did a story on it, Politico did a story on it, the City, lots of different organizations did a study on it, about the Black exodus from New York City, and the rate of home ownership for Black New Yorkers, and basically all that we have accomplished or not accomplished, and how we were able to figure out how we can thrive in New York City. That was commissioned under Dr. Flateau. My part was people of African ancestry, but there was also a section on Latinx immigrants. There was also a section on Asian Americans, and also on Europeans. So it was a 4-part study that was rich, and it involved a lot of different people from the CUNY Grad Center, from across CUNY. Dr. Flateau did this, but he never rightfully got the credit for it, right? The New York Times did a story, all these other entities did a story. Gotham Gazette actually gave credit to them, but lots that Channel 13 picked it up. So Dr. Flateau was pretty, just think, he has a book called Black Brooklyn. And in this book, he talks about, what it takes to elect Black leadership, the numbers that it takes to do it. And so this is his life's work, and he's retooled it in many different venues over the years, right? Which I just described.
He has written quite a few books. He also wrote a book called Blackout Media Ownership. And we're on the media. Whenever I called Dr. Flateau, he would always pick up the phone. Hi, Sam. And he understood the power of what we do here at Brooklyn 45. And it's good to have you on Brooklyn 45 as well, because you too understand what we do. Before we get back to Dr. Flateau, I want to talk about you for a second. You are the chair of public administration. And did I get that correct?
Yes, you did.
What do you do there?
Well, I'm the chair of the department. I'm the chief academic officer for that department, not for the college, but for the department. And Dr. Flateau served in that department as well. I administer courses. I create curriculum. I schedule classes. I hire and recruit new faculty members to the department and recruit students and develop degree programs. So a wide range of curricular activities.
You're going to miss Dr. Flateau. He hired you.
Yes, he did hire me. Yes.
He was also a life member of the NAACP.
Yes.
How important is the NAACP to you, to Dr. Flateau, Medgar Evers, and to all of us here in Brooklyn?
Oh, well, yeah, the NAACP is the lifeblood of our activism, right? Especially for people of African ancestry. And it's so important to the college and to young people. We have a student chapter at the college, and there's also a student chapter at the high school. So there is a pipeline of citizenry, if you will, to this activism. And so Dr. Flateau was pretty much key in the founding of the student organizations for the NAACP at the college, and always contributed at the Brooklyn level and state level. He was a community activist in all respect, a scholar activist, if you will.
Dr. Zulema Blair, it's such a pleasure to have you here on Brooklyn 45. You have worked so closely with Dr. Flateau, and all of Brooklyn love to hear people talking about Dr. Flateau, and are very impressed with the work that you have done with Dr. Flateau. Again, thank you very much for being on Brooklyn 45.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. John Flateau, we are going to miss you. And we thank you, Lulu Friesdat, and the information that you provided for all of us about voting. And we thank you, our viewers, for watching our program. We invite you to partner with Brooklyn 45. You can do this in so many ways. We are a 501c3 community TV program. And when you support us with a gift, you benefit and our communities benefit as well. On behalf of our Brooklyn 45 team, I am Sam Taitt.
Brooklyn 45 is a 501c3 not-for-profit, and we welcome your support. Check out our website, brooklyn45.com, and feel free to donate or share it with your friends and family. Have any comments or questions? Send them to our Facebook, facebook.com/Brooklyn45TV. If you have any questions or topics you think we should cover next, shoot me an email over at brooklyn45tv@gmail.com. Thank you again for watching.